look at this graph. It doesn't look as smooth as this one, right? Because this one, I drew it and I took my time to just put it together. However, look at this. This is the reality of economic cycle, because it's highly unpredictable and it can go as high as low as it wants. Yeah. So this is uncontrolled economy. So this is so uncontrolled. However, there is no government that wants to have this as its economy. No government wants this. Every government wants to achieve a good cycle that is under control and is growing and avoid depression, recession as much as possible. So what every country would like to see is something like this. Steady, growing without necessarily too deep or too. So every economy, this is what every country wants to achieve. They don't want this situation. Unfortunately, it is difficult, but it is not impossible. Yeah. So, in order to achieve this, every government would develop what we call the macroeconomic policies. Macroeconomic policies. And what are these? These are just the rules from the government. You can call it rules, you can call it their policies, you can call it guidance, you can call it regulations. Yeah, but government must be deliberate to achieve this nice, growing, steady economy. And how would they achieve that? They need to develop policies on. Should there be policies on to achieve growth? Yeah. So policies and objectives. So these are the objectives of the policies: to achieve growth of the economy, to control inflation. So we want to achieve controlled inflation, because if the inflation is too high, the economy gets too heated up and the money will lose value and not good for the economy. That's increase in price without value. Every government wants to achieve full employment as much as possible, want to minimize unemployment as much as possible. And likewise, want to achieve what we call the balance of trade. Interesting. And I will explain each of these. So these are the 4 key objectives that every government wants to achieve in order to have a smooth economy. Small, steady, growing economy. So how do they do that? So there are 2 types of policies that they use. Types. There are 2. The first one is the monetary policy, and the second type is the fiscal policy. When they are using monetary policy, what they are doing is the government is trying to use rates to control economy, and that is the 2 rates are interest rates, and the second one is foreign exchange rate. You see? So that I don't confuse them. It's about rates for monetary. However, for fiscal policies, it's not about rates. Rather, it's about taxation and government expenditure. Those are the 2 policies, types of policies. Yeah. And how do they use all of this? So let's talk about interest rate. Interest rate is the same thing as borrowing rate, which is the rate, interest expense you pay when you borrow money. Right. So if money is very cheap, which means interest rate is very low, it means everybody can borrow money. Everybody can have access to money because it's cheap to borrow money from the banks, from the government, or from everyone. And in that case, that means everybody will have money. There's be so money in the system. And when there is so much money in the system, it means that everybody wants to buy. Nobody wants to produce, which is very bad for every economy. And that is inflation. That leads to inflation. So I want you to look at these 2 types of policies in a way to control inflation. Because remember, growth is also about inflation. This is growth means inflation is going up, but you want to grow up in a controlled manner. Right. So see inflation as too much money in the system. So let me put this down here. Inflation equals to too much cash in economy. So in the country, you have too much cash, and it's bad. You don't want that. This is bad, right? And that is why we want to control it using macroeconomic policy. So now, when you have interest rate that is low, if government try to increase interest rates, let's say we want to increase interest rate, it means that government wants to ensure that not so many people will be able to afford to borrow. Yeah, so let's see what will be the impact. So if government increases interest rate, inflation impact means inflation will come down because money will not be readily available. Yeah, and the conclusion is that government is using what we call the contraction. Yeah. So you can have expansion or contraction of the economy. So here they are trying to contract the economy. They are trying to reduce the money in circulation. Yeah. That's why they've increased the interest rate. And if government decreases interest rate, it means that a lot of people will have access to money, and in that case, inflation will go up, and that is expansion of the economy. But why would government try to do that? Yeah. So reason here, the reason why they will try to increase rate is when there is high inflation. And which part of the economic cycle can you see high inflation? Most likely you will see it during this stage. So even at boom stage, if you don't control it, it might be a problem. And if there is low inflation, which you will see during recession or during depression, you want to kickstart the economy, then you need to drop interest rate. And we saw this during COVID, when they're trying to kick the economy when the vaccine came out, and they're trying to restart the economy and ensure that people go back to work, companies start producing. A lot of money became available, and at the point, the economy got to a point that it was so heated up with the low interest rate. The inflation became so high. Then you see a lot of countries now trying to control their inflation, and what are they doing? They are increasing the interest rates just to bring inflation down, and that is contraction policy, and this is expansion policy. Please take note. So that's interest rate. Yeah. If you look at foreign exchange rate, the way I will explain this quickly is, if you look at FX rate, if the FX rate of a country is strong, which means it's powerful, take for instance, if you look at UK, you say 1.4 US dollar is equivalent to £1, right? But if this increases to $3 is equivalent to £1, that means that pound has appreciated. So pound is stronger. Yeah, and when pounds become stronger, it means that to buy something in the US, import is cheaper. Because if I want to buy something of £1 being in the UK, it means I'm going to get $1.4 worth of an item. But now, I don't even need, for the same item, I don't need £1 again, because £1 is $3, and 0.5 pounds will even give me $1.5, and I only need $1.4 to buy the same item. So it means that I can buy two things now than one I used to buy. So, and which means when import is cheaper, we'll keep spending money in the UK, and because our rate is strong, there's a cheaper import cash will be going out because we're going to be spending a lot, and likely we have a chance of bringing inflation down. And vice versa if our FX rate gets weakened. Yeah, very important. And speaking on fiscal now, so that's touching on monetary. Now let's look at fiscal policies. How can they use fiscal policies to control inflation? Yeah, taxation first. Remember, taxation is what you pay on income. So if your income is high, if you're making so much money, you pay so much taxes, or maybe even on taxes of what you pay on the things you buy, value added taxes and all of that. So if there's so much money in this system, which means when you have high inflation, at the point where there's high inflation means there's so much money in the system. What will government do? Government will have to increase tax, because when they increase tax, what will happen? Economy will contract. Means economy will reduce, cash flows in the system, because people will not be willing to spend so much again, because everything you buy, there's so much tax on it. Also, people will slow down on a lot of luxury items because the taxes you pay will be so huge, and what is the point? You are paying so much without really so much value for yourself. So, but if the inflation is low, then government will reduce tax to encourage people to spend, and that is expansionary. So you need to take note why they would do what, this is the action, and the nature of the policy that is being used in that case. So remember, taxation is one of the fiscal policies that you can use. The last one is the expenditure, which is government expenditure. The way I want you to look at this, for you to understand, is look at it as government trying to build infrastructure. Building of infrastructure. Let's say bridge. For government to build bridge, they need to employ people. They need to employ people, or they need to employ a contractor that will employ people, because work needs to be done. And in trying to do that, you have to pay the people. So you're going to pay salaries, you're going to pay consultants, you're going to buy materials. When you are doing all of this, you are creating jobs, you are giving people income, and you are pouring cash in the system. So you are pouring cash in economy. And what does that mean? Inflation is going upward, because demand will go up, and price will go up, and inflation will go up accordingly. Remember, inflation is rising price. Okay, so if you understand the expenditure like that, then you will know how this can be used to control the economy. So if we look at this same table here, if I use it for expenditure, so when there is high inflation, what should government do? Government need to reduce expenditure. And if there is low inflation, government will have to increase expenditure. And you will see it. If there is high inflation, it means that there's so much cash in the system already. So reducing the expenditure means that you want to contract the economy. You don't want to create more jobs. You don't want to give more income. And if the economy has low inflation, you want to create more jobs, you want to pour more cash in the system, then increase your expenditure as a government, start building infrastructure so that you can employ people, you can give contract out and get people to start doing work and earning more income. And what you are doing then is you're trying to expand the economy. So that's expansionary. Very important, and that's macroeconomic policies. Remember, always share this with your friends. Comment, question, and it's important to also reach out to me if you need any clarification. Now, I'll quickly talk about unemployment, which is the last part of macroeconomics. What is unemployment? Let's break it down this way. Where does this come from? We know that for any company to produce, the company must realize that there's going to be a demand for its product. So this means that demand from customers drives companies to produce, right? We know that. That's number one fact. Number two fact is that, okay, now production by the company makes it important for them, so makes the company to employ people. Because they need them. Now, this is what we are talking about in unemployment. And what does that mean? What I'm saying now is that sometimes when demand, remember which demand? This demand is too low, and production, because demand is too low, what happens to production? Production will also be too low. As a result of low demand. What happens next? So remember, let me break it down again. Demand drives companies to produce, and production will make the company to employ people. However, when demand is too low and production is too low as a result of low demand, what happens? The company cannot employ so many people, because they only employ people that they need. And that is a summary of unemployment. What is unemployment? Now, from the explanation. So unemployment is just when you have people required on a job is less than people available, or people that need job is less than people that need job. This is unemployment. And this type of unemployment is called the cyclical unemployment. And this is the most popular type of unemployment. Cyclical unemployment. Please take note. This is the most popular unemployment because there are other different types of unemployment. But this one that is very relevant for this paper in terms of when we are talking of unemployment, the type of unemployment that we are talking about all the time is cyclical type of unemployment. But that doesn't mean that you are not required to know the other types of unemployment. I'm going to quickly take you through all of them. Now, there are 4 other types of unemployment that you are required to know the difference. But like I said, every time we are talking of unemployment in terms of the goals of the macroeconomic policy of the government, what they are trying to deal with is cyclical unemployment, because what they want to do is they want to make sure that demand is high enough for production to be high enough such that company can employ as many people as possible, and by doing that, unemployment is being reduced. But there are other types, and quickly I will just summarize it for you here, and please take notes. So the first one is frictional. Frictional unemployment. Frictional unemployment is when you are changing jobs. And I will explain this. It's as a result of change of job. And how does this work? If you resign today, effective next week, right? So next week you have resigned. You've said, okay, by, let them say tomorrow. You are telling your employer, tomorrow I'm resigning. However, you are not resuming your new job until 2 weeks' time. So which means there's a 2 weeks gap between when you resign your previous job and when you resume your new job. In that case, you are unemployed for 2 weeks. That type of unemployment is frictional unemployment. And I'm sure that's a good unemployment because you are just resting and chilling until you resume your new role. There's another type called structural unemployment. This one, you are employed, however, there is a mismatch of skills. So you are a microbiologist, however, you are an accountant because you couldn't get a job as a microbiologist, or you don't like the job as a microbiologist and you decide to go into accounting, or you decide to go to IT. So here there's a mismatch of skill. You are still employed, but you are not employed with the original skills that you have. Another type is classical, or we call it wage. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm talking about the courses and the type. When you have a classical or wage unemployment, what you are saying is you are restricted with your budget. So your budget is 100 million. Yeah. However, with 100 million, if you decide to pay 1 million, you employ 100 people. But if you decide to pay 10 million to people, you can only employ 10 people. So the kind of unemployment that is resulting from you trying to pay higher wages to people is classical or wage unemployment, because you want to pay minimum wage. Say it's 10 million, then you can't employ more than 10 people because you are mandated to pay minimum of 10 million. So once this money that is making you to not be able to employ more people is classical unemployment. And the last one that I will talk about is the seasonal unemployment. And this is just caused by this season. Like you always see, during Christmas season, you have a lot of retail staff being employed, so there'll be a lot of jobs for that. If you're an expert in making ice cream, you see there'll be more jobs for those kind of people during summer and all of that. So when it's being driven by season, then that is seasonal unemployment. If it is by budget, that is classical. And if it is by mismatch of skills, that is structural. For change of job is frictional. And that will be it on unemployment and the end of macroeconomic policy. Remember, keep liking, keep sharing, commenting, and we'll see you again in the next video when I'll be summarizing another part of the business technology paper. Until then.